Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming back to our show. Um, Tonight, it's our last episode of the Love and Diabetes segment. And we have Mr. Demetrius Jones and Mrs. Dr. Sylvia Jones. We're so excited to have them on tonight. We're going to give you a second to share the video before we begin.
Okay. Did you get it together?
Before we begin. Okay.
Did you get it together? Okay.
We're going to give you a second to share the video before we begin. And so you all are able to turn that off. Or
Yeah, we turned it down. Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited to have you two on the segment tonight. You two are very, very special people to me. I've known Dr. Jones, Dr. Sylvia Jones, for over 20 years. She and I are high school friends, and we are a part of a tight knit group that still keeps in contact to this day. And I was there when she met. Or when she married Demetrius, I was, her friend and in her life when she met him and heard the beautiful love story. So it's awesome to be able to live in this present day and time and uh, bring their story and their lives to the forefront. So thank you so much for joining me tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
So first off, I just want to talk about let's jump right into it. Let's talk about diabetes. So Demetrius, you are a type 1 diabetic.
Yes.
How long have you been a type 1 diabetic?
So it's now been 20 years. I was diagnosed at the age of 20. And so, yes, literally this year is 20 years that I've been living with type 1 diabetes.
Wow, 20 years. So when you were first diagnosed, what was that like for you?
So it was crazy. I was away at college down in South Carolina, far from family and friends. And so the symptoms and everything that people talk about, like, the constantly being thirsty and frequent urination and things of that nature, they started, but because they come on kind of gradual, didn't really notice it. I was just coming out of the summer. I was like, I've been drinking a lot more fluids. So naturally, that's why I'm going to the restroom more and things like that. But it was Thanksgiving of that year when I was with my family, visiting family in Charlotte, and had a big Thanksgiving dinner, desserts, the whole nine.
Yeah.
And it was just way too much for somebody that had type 1 diabetes and didn't know it. So my blood sugar was through the roof. I was not feeling well, not looking well. And my family took me to the emergency room. And there, the doctors ran a bunch of tests and everything. And I was diagnosed being diabetic.
So when you got that information, how was your emotional response? I think there's some feedback there because I think your computer probably will have to be turned down some.
Is that better?
Yes. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So what emotions were you feeling with that? What thoughts came to your mind?
I mean, I was in denial. Like I couldn't believe it. I was because it was one of those things I'd always been, I guess my misconceptions about diabetes is that either, like small children had type 1 diabetes, like younger children had it and grew up with it, or adults got it because of, being overweight and not being in good shape and things like that. And I mean, I've always been like right down the line for, you know, height and weight, where those things should be. And so I just was like, no, this can't be right. Like, there's got to be something wrong, and didn't want to come to grips with it being a permanent thing. And so, you know, initially and then there was I guess some further testing that needed to be done. So initially they thought that I was type 2. And so they started treating me with pills and trying to treat it as if it was type 2, which didn't work. And then following up with the doctor, it was decided that I was type 1 and that I needed to be on insulin full time.
So was your outlook positive?
Not at first. No. Like I said, I was in denial. I didn't really come to grips with it initially. It took me kind of starting to meet with specialists and things, and talking more about living with diabetes versus it being, you know, this gloom and doom that was kind of hanging over me all the time before I really started learning to live with it. But I mean, to be honest, it took a while. Like, it wasn't I want to say it was a few months, but it was probably more like a couple years or so for me to really come to grips with it and start to turn around my way of approaching it.
So when you met Sylvia, fast forward and tell us that beautiful love story. I want you two to just put us in the room and tell us about how you met.
I'm going to defer to you. Go ahead.
We were both at The Ohio State University. It was our first year. I was getting my doctorate degree and he was getting his master's degree. And it was like a student mixer that we were at, and we just kind of started talking. Actually, I was actually running from somebody else. And so I kind of ended up in his group by happenstance. And then we started basically talking about 270 and how I could never get the directions right. And then before we know,
270 is the highway, right?
In Columbus, yes. And I'm always don't know which way west or east or what have you. So I don't know why we were talking about that. And then the next night there was another mixer, but it was at a dance. It was a party.
A jazz club.
It was like a jazz club. And so then he came up to me and I think he remembered my name. And I was like, what? How you know my name? And he asked me to dance. And then we just danced all night. And then we never left each other. No.
After that, you guys were just together, right? Like, that's it.
Like every day.
Yeah, like on the phone, hanging out with each other. Just, yeah, after that, we were always together. I think from that point, so that was earlier in the fall. By the end of the year, we started dating more seriously. That next spring, we got engaged.
6 months.
We got
engaged.
Yeah, we were dating for 6 months. We were engaged. We had a 1-year engagement.
And then we were married.
Wow. And like I said before, I need you to turn that volume down a little bit more.
Okay. Is that better?
I think so. And more.
Maybe you need to move that. Do you think you need to move the phone? Maybe it's interfering or something.
Oh, it's completely off.
No, I'm just saying, just the signal.
So that's great. Thank you. Tell me about your courtship.
What was we were together. I couldn't get rid of him. So no, we had our courtship was fun. I wasn't really at the time looking for a husband. We were only like 22 or 23, somewhere in there. So we were just young and having fun. But we just knew we were kind of supposed to be together. And so we just kind of were always together. he was, at the time, he was actually going back and forth to Maryland because he actually had a job in Maryland at the time. So we thought that he would live there, or we would actually eventually move there. But he ended up actually staying here in Columbus.
Wow. So he was going to move there for a little bit, and it didn't happen.
Yeah. So, and that was the plan. Like as we were dating, that's what we were preparing for. So we kept thinking, okay, so we're gonna keep dating. We're gonna see. We know you're gonna be here in school for 4 years, and my program is a 2-year program. I'm gonna have to go back to Maryland because I've got this job commitment, and that was. I mean, we kept dating with that expectation as being what was going to happen, and we would have to figure it out from there. But I mean, it didn't prevent us from continuing to date and everything. And then once things changed with the job that I had, the plan was that I was going to be here in Columbus. I didn't have anywhere else that I had to be, any other obligation.
Yeah.
So what was it? What was it about him that made you say, this is it. This is for me. This is the love of my life?
Well, you know our story. And we had decided not to, or I personally had decided at the time not to have sex until I got married. And so when I first met him, I didn't quite know how he was going to take that. But he was actually okay with it. And I didn't know he was going to be my husband or what have you. And so we were just able to grow our bond without that. And that is probably why we got married. So, we were engaged in 6 months, is because we kind of were ready to move forward. And so I knew that he was the one because of just how he treated me, how kind he was, and how much he loved God. He is one of the most God-loving men. And it's not that, and I love God, but it was the way it was his actions. Like, so if we passed anybody, he's so generous. He's always giving. So if it's a homeless person on the street, he won't walk past them. Or, he just doesn't do things like that. So when you look at how he treats other people, how you're going to be treated and how your children be treated and all that good stuff. And so that was he just always has had such a kind heart.
Wow. And talk about the generosity. Let's go back to your car, Dr. Jones, the car that you were driving when you met him, and how he made provision.
Wow. So I didn't grow up in an affluent family. So I had worked, I think maybe 1 or 2 summers at McDonald's and saved up all my money to get me a car. Mm-hmm. And I prayed over this car. I said, Lord, please let this car work. And it did. It never broke down on me. Now it did shake a lot when it shook when it got on the highway, but it didn't break down. So when my husband and he also has a blog, he's a car blogger and he loves cars. And so when I met him, he's got like a new red car and all this stuff, but I don't care because my car is working, and I prayed over my car. This is what God blessed me with. I'm grateful. It wasn't great. He looked at this like, what in the world is this? And I had, he actually helped me get a car. He said, no woman I'm with is going to ride around in nothing like this. And so we went to the lot and he actually co-signed for me a car, which I thought was just like, wow, you really don't know me, I guess. But, and this was before we was married. And, so I figured, this is pretty good.
That's amazing. So, for those of you who are joining us right now, we have Dr. Sylvia Jones and her husband, Demetrius Jones. Sylvia and I are longtime friends, really close friends. We talk very often. We're in a group of women that have been friends since high school. And so I reached out to her and asked if she and her husband would join us. And so, if you could just take some time and share this video, because we're sharing some awesome information regarding diabetes. So, speaking of that, when did you know was the right time to share that, Demetrius?
Well, it was actually pretty early on. So we were, because I guess part of us dating, like we would go out to dinner and, and go to restaurants, and we'd spend time talking, and we'd spend hours on the phone and everything else. So it was pretty early on in our conversations where it came out that I had diabetes. At the time, I was using one of the insulin pens. And so it wasn't a thing that you could really hide if it's just the two of y'all at a restaurant together. And so it was, yes, I have diabetes, and this is, and I was concerned about what her thoughts were going to be on it.
Right.
Because even to me, it was something, it was an issue. Just me looking at myself. So I didn't know how she would respond to it, what she would think, what her level of education was with it, and what have you. But when we talked about it, like she shared about, having family members that had diabetes, and having a lot of, I guess kind of a lot of experience and a lot of kind of knowledge and firsthand with it. And it made me feel comfortable. So she wasn't frightened by it. She wasn't worried about it. She kind of took a kind of motherly approach in a way. It was kind of looking, like, did you make sure you did this? Did you get enough? Did you take this? Should you be eating this? And so kind of took that type of an approach. But yeah, definitely, none of my concerns and worries that I had about it were warranted.
And Sylvia, how did you decide that Demetrius having diabetes was not a big deal? Like, you're just not worried about it. What made you decide to just not even make it a factor?
I grew up with diabetes. So I'm basically a diabetic. I mean, my mother had diabetes when I was born. And I remember it impacting her when she talked about my birth, really, that, I was a larger baby, because sometimes, when you have diabetes, you have larger babies and it can have complications. And so I had seen my mother take shots. She had type 2 though, but I had seen her take shots all her life since I was born. So he didn't know any of that, and then she eventually, passed away from not really diabetes, but different complications that kind of stemmed from that.
Right.
And then also my grandmother had diabetes as well. And so to me, I thought diabetes was normal. Like, it's like everybody gets old and gets diabetes. That was my childhood view. So when he said it, it wasn't anything that I was scared of. And then I'm a science person. So I knew quite a bit about diabetes, because I had researched it for myself, trying not to, to figure out what I could do to maybe help prevent it from me, since I had such a big family history of it. So that wasn't a concern for me. So my concern with a guy was not about his health things. The one thing I did know also, and this may be something like when, I did know enough about type 1 diabetes to kind of know it wasn't, because even when we were thinking about getting married, you wonder, is this something genetic? Could your kids get it? Could you pass it on? Stuff like that. I actually thought about those things, and I knew that it wasn't it wasn't, type 1 was more to me, they didn't, in the studies and stuff, they didn't show that it really passed on to children. Type 2 did more than type 1. So I wasn't it was something that I thought we could handle.
That's beautiful. And so, as time progressed, from a friend standpoint, we talked about how I never really asked, how's Demetrius doing? How is things going? How are things going with him and his diabetes? I had this idea in my head that Demetrius had a version of diabetes that was just like a superhero version, that he never had any sugar spikes, any sugar lows. He just had diabetes, but nothing ever happened. And it's weird because, like you said, both of my parents had it. I'm very familiar with it, but I, for whatever reason, assumed that this was just, not the case for him. And so it wasn't until when you and I spoke the other day, and it almost brought me to tears, when you shared with me all of the experiences that you guys have gone through together, and how things can get scary sometimes. And I felt horrible as a friend that I had not given you the space to share your experience in that way. We talk a lot about the goods, and sometimes we talk about the bads, but I never asked. So, share with us, some of the things that you experienced, Demetrius, with your diabetes.
Well, I'd say one of the things that I've experienced. So as we talk about early on us dating, I would go back and forth to Maryland. So whenever there was a break from Ohio State, I would go to Maryland and I would work for those periods of time and different things like that. And I always drove. It was always I had that 7-hour drive down. But I wasn't good about checking my blood sugar. And so when my blood sugar was high, then I had to pull off and go to the truck stop, rest stop, whatever. I knew about everyone between here and Maryland sometimes. And it was just symptomatic of that. Like I would drive for an hour and then I had to stop. And then, it's a long road trip. So you're drinking Mountain Dew so that you can stay awake, and your blood sugar is high. So now you got to pull off the road. And so, like I said, early on, I wasn't the best at managing that. So those was kind of some of the things that I would experience, is just that really high blood sugars. As far as the high is more, I'd say, it's become one of those things where you almost, for me, I know when I'm trending towards my blood sugar being high. Now the low is the one that kind of sneaks up on you more.
Right.
And that one, just because of its kind of slowly onsets, you kind of feel like you're fine. You don't really notice that your blood sugar is getting low. Sometimes I'll get kind of like shaky. Like I'll notice if I hold my hands out, it'll be real shaky. And if I can catch it kind of happening. But then, and Sylvia can probably talk to more of that, just experiencing my blood sugar going really low. And sometimes it's miscalculating the amount of insulin to take for a meal, or your blood sugar kind of being at the lower end. And when you take the amount of insulin, it took you lower than what you should have. Number of different things.
Speaking of your pump, right?
Yes. And so, and I've been using the insulin pump at least 10 years. I think I'm on my third one, like with different brands and what have you. And I see my endocrinologist routinely, like every 3 months. And we try to make sure that I'm doing those things. But the thing, I've heard different people, through the series that you've shared, like different guests talk about, their experience with insulin pumps and what have you. But for me, insulin pump gave me more steady control. So the insulin pump, a lot of people, like, you have to take a dose of insulin when you eat. And then there's like a basal that kind of goes throughout the day, like a slow acting insulin, but the pump does that for me. So throughout the day, it keeps it steady because it's giving me just a little bit of insulin throughout the day to keep me from going high. And then when I eat a meal, it gives me that instant dose as well that I need. So the insulin pump has gave me much better control over my diabetes and being able to go back, and even it's just more data points as well. Like when you can look and see like where you were at this point, how much insulin you took, what it affected you, or how it affected you, and things like that. Then it's just more information that you have readily available to better manage the diabetes.
And based on, what I've seen with you guys, it seems like the insulin pump is really the way to go. From the experiences that my family has had, I don't know anyone in my family that has the pump, and they really do have a hard time managing uh, their sugar levels. So I feel that that's a really good option, based on your experience and other people too. It really sounds like they have uh, really had good results with the pump. But it
Yeah,
takes trial and error, for your lifestyle, for your body, you have to kind of find what works best for you.
and it's like I said, it's really good for flexibility. I mean, it's with me. I don't have to find it and whatever else. I mean, I would say the biggest drawback why more people don't have it is that they are expensive. Even having, Affordable Care Act insurance or what have you.
Yeah.
I mean, insulin pumps are in the thousands of dollars. And how much of that is covered by insurance, varies depending on your insurance plan. And then just the supplies, all the supplies that go with the pump are proprietary. So the particular pump that you have, you can only use these materials, these infusion sets, and whatever else. So all of those things are expensive as well. So, I mean, it's a several $1,000 investment sometimes for the pump, and then hundreds of dollars of supplies to use the pump on top of the cost of insulin. So they're not inexpensive. It is definitely one of the hindrances why more people don't have them.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what the cost was like, and that is a lot.
A
That's
used car.
that's one of the
It is.
motivating factors for me to try to stay healthy. I mean, I want to be healthy, but then I kind of want to spend my money on other things. You
Yeah.
know, heart disease runs in my family and things like that, and I think about um my parents. They would spend about $400 each per month on medications only.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, when you're retired, you don't want to spend that. And when you think about it now, it's like that gym membership, spend a little extra money on the food, or paying a personal trainer, or whatever it is you need, can, in a lot of cases, be a lot less expensive than, that medicine down the road.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Jones, you are an optometrist, and you had a passion for education on diabetes even before um, you became an optometrist. Tell us a little bit about that.
Just because of my family history, I've always been intrigued, or I've always kind of perked up when someone said something about diabetes, because it was always, how you have your family history, I always had to put that down, that, people in my family had diabetes. And then in optometry, so I'm an optometrist, and I thought it was interesting on one of your earlier shows, someone said that they really didn't know that you could go blind from diabetes. To me, it seemed, because I'm an optometrist, I deal with it, every day. So not only is it in my family history, it's part of what I do. The eye can be very affected by diabetes. So you can actually see bleeding in the back of the eye. You can see changes to the vessels in the back of the eye. And sometimes I'll actually see that in people who don't even know they have diabetes. So especially in our community, some of them will come to the eye doctor and they won't go to the regular doctor because they don't trust them. But they'll come to me, and then I'll see some changes in the back of the eye that is, kind of just in line with diabetes, and I'll be able to send them to a place where they're able to get care or to get diagnosed or to get some sort of treatment. So
right now, the viewers, they have the picture of the normal retina and the diabetic retina in front of them. And so that kind of gives them an idea of what you're able to see as an optometrist that alerts you to someone
to
having
problems.
diabetes.
Yes. So, the diabetic retina, that is a more severe case. That's not usually what I see, but that eye is not seeing well. The normal retina is what I want to see. You'll see that on that screen, all of the blood is in the vessels. So the vessel is supposed to hold the blood, it's supposed to hold the fluid. Whenever those vessels are weakened, and that can be from high sugar levels, the vessel wall is weakened, and those vessels start to leak. But me as an optometrist, I see that, but and you can see it in the eye. I don't have to do an X-ray. I don't have to do an MRI or anything like that. That's why when we dilate your eye, we put those drops in that don't nobody want or don't nobody like. But we put those drops in to open your pupils so that we can get a good view of the back of the eye to see what's going on back there. Now, the thing about it, which concerns me, is that is not, so just because I can see those vessels in the eye, they're no different than the vessels in the rest of your body. So the vessels in your toes, the vessels in your legs, the vessels in your fingers, they're all leaking. So this is that is why when I see that in the back of the eye, we really need to do something, because those are people who are much more likely to get, the diabetic, all of the other diabetic symptoms because of it being this vascular condition where these vessels are now damaged.
I think that's really key for people to understand. Going and getting your yearly checks are very important, especially as you grow older. Going to the eye doctor can be something that can be life-changing for you. If you're not having any symptoms, your regular physician may not check for certain things, especially if you don't have a family history of it. So the eye doctor can see things going on in your body through a fairly, uninvasive way. Now, Dr. Jones, Sylvia, the checking the retina is a standard procedure, right? You don't have to ask for it.
No, checking the retina is part of a normal comprehensive eye exam. Now, when you're diabetic, or most of the time we'll dilate the eyes, so a dilated eye exam. All diabetics recommend have a yearly eye exam if they're diabetic. However, if we find something, you may have to go to the eye doctor more than once a year. But just under normal circumstances, if you have a diagnosis, or even if they're calling you pre-diabetic, because sometimes in pre-diabetes, a lot of times they find that you already have diabetes. They're just trying to make the diagnosis. So if somebody tells me they're pre-diabetic, I just treat them as though they are diabetic, so that we don't miss anything. So we still dilate the pupils. We still look in and do things like that, because there's a gray area between, when they do this diagnosis, but the body is changing already. There's symptoms there. There's things that are happening for them to even say you're pre-diabetic. That means something is going on. Now, some of those things that you see, some of those can be permanent vision loss. And diabetes is the number one cause of what we call preventable vision loss. That means that if you change your diet, if you do things like that, you could prevent this. However, at a certain point, if there's so much damage, is not going to go back. Like, now I'm going to start eating right, and but now you just kind of lost your vision, and now we're just dealing with it, at best, as best we can with glasses or magnifying glasses or things like that to try to make you see better and have a better quality of life. But the best thing is for prevention. So when we are able to find maybe a little spot of blood and get you to maybe a doctor to get you help, that's great. But what we don't want to see is when you come in, your blood sugar's been high, you haven't been to the doctor, and then you come in because you call in and say, "Hey, I can't see." That's what usually I can't see. And then you'll come in and then, and most people just think it's some glasses. I just need some glasses. I'm going to come in and get these glasses and it's going to be fine. And then I'm like, whoa, we have some other things going on. We have to get that fixed first before we can even think about glasses.
So, throughout all of the interviews I've done, a lot of, or a continuing theme in these interviews is prevention. Getting checked, on a regular basis by your doctor, getting your eyes checked, things like that. Sometimes it is hard to face the music, right? You get news that you are ill or you're on the verge of having something that you don't want, but it puts yourself in a much better position to know early on to be able to change than when you're too far gone and it could have been reversed. Like she said, diabetes is the number one reason for preventable blindness. Think about that for a second. Preventable. It's not inevitable, it's preventable. So we want to keep that in mind. And so you are an optometrist, but you too have a practice. Tell us about your actual facility that you have there.
So we do own a practice, and we both are. I see the patients, and he manages the staff. So it is a family-owned practice. It's called Divine Family Eye Care, and it's here located in Columbus, Ohio. And this is vision and stuff like that. That's what I was kind of born to do. So I love what I do. I'm a science geek, even though I'm a science buff, and I love optics, and I love physics, and I love all those things that most people are just like, over their heads. But it's what I enjoy. But I also love entrepreneurship. So when I became an eye doctor, I got into being an eye doctor because of me loving the science. But then as I had to work with marketing, even though you love that, you still have to manage staff. You have to, do all of those things that come with owning a small business. And I actually found that I enjoyed that. And so that has been and kind of it was really good for us. And so as I grew to practice, I needed more help. And then that's when kind of Demetrius came in. So what do you have to say about the practice?
And so my background is management information systems, and I kind of worked in different varying levels of management with people and what have you. And so as we started, working on the practice and talking about the practice more and more, and the need was there as the practice was growing. And I was looking to change things from where I was working in corporate America. It was like, why don't I just go to Divine and help grow our family business? And so we talked about it, and it's like, really gonna do that? And so we did, and it's been good. It's the thing that I would say that I love about being at Divine is the patients that come in. Like, you see the same people every year. You see these children grow up, and I mean, you see, you're a part of the community. We see people walk from down the street, and I live around the corner, or, you have people, and because our practice had been there for a number of years before we owned it, there's people that say, that they're happy to see an eye doctor that looks like them. Or, I'm, as they say as a little girl, my eye doctor looks like me, or as people that take pride in us being a part of that, part of the community.
That is awesome. And so, not only do you own a practice there in Columbus, Ohio, you have launched an amazing business, Violet Go
Yes,
Everywhere Eyewear.
Mhm.
And so, tell me more about Violet. Well, I first want to talk about Violet. I think that it is amazing. Um, the glasses, the selections are amazing. It is um, a place where you can go and purchase eyeglasses. You can get prescription or non-prescription. You can get different types of things, lenses in the frames. Not only that, you can host a party where you and your friends or family can purchase eyeglasses. And then you can also start your own business within Violet Eyewear. So tell them more about it.
So Violet Eyewear, I got the idea about 3 years ago, and you know me, Darshell, I get an idea from the Lord, and I tried to run from it, but it was one of those things where it just seemed like it was something that was for me. I had no idea how to make that happen. As far as where do I even start with that? But every morning I'd get up and ask the Lord, well, what am I supposed to do today? And we just brick by brick. Now, Demetrius, I said, well, if when you have a husband, you can't, you want to take his opinions into consideration sometimes. And so I was on the fence because I didn't know if I wanted to keep doing it or maybe it wasn't a good choice. And so I said, well, Lord, if I'm not supposed to do it, tell Demetrius to tell me no, this is, he's the head of the household. He'll tell me no. And I'll be like, okay. But then what did you say, Demetrius?
I said, I thought it was a good idea that she should move forward with it. And it wasn't quite what she wanted to hear, but it was.
Yes, but now I'm so glad I did because even though, we love Divine and it's great, but when this COVID-19 thing came, we had to shut down. Staff and stuff like that. We had to. We reopened on Monday. Oh. So, from March to now, we've kind of been, with staff and all that good stuff. But during that time, it's kind of like Violet was a way for me to do parties online, for me to be able to still, have a, be able to show glasses to people. And like I said, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And so with Violet, it feels like more like I've been able to learn so much being an entrepreneur with Divine, but now I'm able to teach other people. So I feel like, instead of just giving somebody a fish, I can kind of help teach them how to fish for themselves. So that is what I love about about Violet. It is a Christian-based company. And so every letter of Violet stands for something, and it also has a scriptural reference to it. It's been a way for me to mentor people and to just use a lot of the other gifts and talents God had given me, like the gift of design, the gift of being social, the gift of I like to party. See, that's how we met. So now we do home parties, with eyeglasses that are fun. But I'm still able to use my, the knowledge that I've learned about eyeglasses and about the eye in general. To be able to further develop another company.
Right. Well, we're drawing close to the end of our interview tonight. And I'm going to give our viewers the opportunity to ask some questions. I'm going to present our credits as they type their questions in the comment section. Demetrius and Sylvia, if you can think of any final thoughts and just think quietly to yourself as we play the music, and we'll come back very soon. And we're back. So, this has been a really, really awesome time to share with you all. Just to recap, basically, um, love has no boundaries, and you all found each other and you found love. Um, Diabetes or not, you're together, and over 17 years of wonderful marriage bliss, and 3 children, 2 businesses. God has been good. So things are going well. Um, you have a wonderful business, Violet Eyewear. You provide people with the opportunity to become entrepreneurs. Um, and everything's just been really, really, really good. I know you've had some ups and downs with diabetes and things of that sort, but you persevered. I want to thank you for coming on tonight. I want to thank my viewers for taking this time with me. Please stay tuned to other topics coming up. Feel free to inbox me with requests of topics that you'd like to hear about, any questions that you have, or if you would like to sponsor the show with a fashion line that you have, or music that you have. So feel free to let me know. Um, your um, final remarks, Mr. and Dr. Jones.
Well, first, I want to say thank you to you, Darshell, for creating this forum for people to talk openly about diabetes and how it has affected their life, and making it not a taboo topic, or for people to feel like it's a taboo topic. And just let people know that, you're not the only person out there that has diabetes. You don't have to be ashamed of it. You don't have to be ashamed to get help and try to treat it and change your life so that you can take better care of yourself. And that you do have to take action. It's not something that you can ignore and it'll go away on its own, or it's not going to go away, but you can change your life so that it doesn't negatively impact your life. And so that's the biggest thing that I would say for anybody that is, young or new to diabetes or what have you. Take the necessary steps so that you can live a long and healthy life with it.
Just to go off of what he says, that diabetes is it is something that you live with. And then me as a wife, I'm here to support my husband. And I'm here to, if it's whatever happens, to him, it happens to me, really, that's how we are. So I look after him as though I look after myself. So we make it happen. But for those out there who have it, just make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And then I say, go get a yearly eye exam, please.
Yeah.
Especially if you are in any community, you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And then if you need to get an endocrinologist, if you need to get an insulin pump, sometimes I find that our people, we will spend money on things that make us sick, but not on things that make us well. So if that requires you to do stuff, you just have to prioritize it so that you can live a long and healthy life.
Well, thank you so much. And once again, thanks to all of the viewers. Please share this video, tag people, get the word out there. There's several videos. This is video number 7. So there's been quite a bit of information shared throughout the last 2 weeks regarding diabetes. So thank you again, and we will see you all next time.
Thank you, Darshell.
Thank you.